The palace was alive with excitement. The news of Prince Veyron's fall had spread like wildfire across Verith. The old power had been broken, and the path to peace with Earth seemed clearer than ever. Ethan stood beside Lyra in the royal chamber, now officially recognized as a royal mate. The formal ceremony was simple but full of meaning, a bond not just of law, but of trust and choice. Lyra's leg still carried its familiar limp, but she stood taller than ever. Her silver skin glowed softly under the crystal chandeliers. "You have changed everything," she said quietly, looking into Ethan's eyes. "I only walked beside you," Ethan replied. "You carried the weight." The queen approached, her face softened by time and understanding. "Princess Lyra," she said, "you have proven that strength is not measured by the perfection of the body, but by the courage within. You have honored your people and all who watch." Lyra bowed respectfully. "Thank you, Your Majesty." Days passed and the new peace treaty was signed. The Verath and Earth began to share knowledge, culture, and friendship. Ethan was appointed as Earth's official ambassador to Verath, a role he accepted with honor. But beyond politics, a quiet change grew between Ethan and Lyra. One evening, as the twin moons rose high, they walked along the crystal-lit paths of the palace gardens. Lyra leaned on her staff, but her steps were steady and sure. "Do you remember the day you first saved me?" she asked. Ethan smiled. "How could I forget? You were barely conscious, but fierce even then." She laughed softly. "I was afraid then, afraid I would never live a full life." "Look at you now," Ethan said, "stronger than anyone I know." She looked at him, her eyes shining. "Because you believed in me." Their bond became a symbol throughout the galaxy, a human and an alien, united against doubt and fear. Others came forward. Disabled aliens, outsiders, those once dismissed, finding courage in their story. Lyra started programs to help disabled. Youth become leaders and warriors. Ethan worked to strengthen ties between Earth and Verith. Together, they showed that difference was not weakness, but strength. One day, as they walked through a newly planted grove of crystal trees, Ethan stopped and took Lyra's hand. "We've come a long way," he said softly, "and I want to take the next step, with you." Lyra's eyes widened. "What step?" Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, shining band, a circle of woven crystals designed in Earth and Verith styles. "Will you marry me, Lyra? Not because of law or blood, but because I choose you." Tears filled her eyes. She nodded, smiling brighter than ever. "Yes, Ethan, I will." The galaxy watched as the human soldier and the disabled alien princess walked forward, not as exceptions, but as leaders. Their love was not perfect in form, but perfect in spirit. And in that, they found a future where no one was left behind. The great council chamber was packed. Noble families from every corner of Verith had gathered for what many called the trial of the century. The stakes were clear. The future of the Verith royal family and the fragile peace with Earth rested on the outcome. Ethan stood beside Lyra near the center of the room. The tension was thick, the kind that made the air feel heavy. The murmurs of the crowd rose and fell like waves as they waited. At the high dais sat Queen Solara, her silver hair gleaming under the crystal lights. Her eyes scanned the crowd with authority. Beside her sat Prince Veyron, his usual confident smirk replaced with a cold glare. The room fell silent as Queen Solara began. "We are gathered to decide the truth of the accusations against Prince Veyron." Veyron stood, his voice sharp. "These claims are false. I demand proof beyond shadowy recordings." Lyra stepped forward, her staff steady in her hands. "Your Majesty, the recordings were taken from the palace archives. The guards we captured confirmed the orders came from Veyron himself." A murmur rippled through the audience. Some nobles looked surprised, others frowning in disbelief. Varen sneered. "This is a political game, designed to weaken me and my house." Ethan spoke then, his voice clear and steady. "We have the evidence, and the truth is stronger than lies." Varen's eyes burned with anger. "Very well. If you want proof, I accept a trial by combat. We shall settle this like true Varath." Gasps echoed around the chamber. Trials by combat were rare but respected, an ancient way to prove honor. Lyra's eyes met Ethan's. She nodded. "I accept," Ethan said, surprising many. A human soldier challenging a Varath prince in combat? It was unheard of. Queen Solara raised her hand. "So be it. The trial will begin at dawn." That night, the palace was restless. Ethan trained in the courtyard under the glow of the moons. Lyra watched, her staff in hand, but her eyes filled with pride. "You fight well, Ethan," she said softly. "But you must understand, the trial is not just strength. It is strategy, mind, and honor." Ethan smiled tiredly. "I'm ready for whatever comes." Lyra moved closer. "I will be with you. We fight as one." The words settled between them like a promise. Dawn arrived cold and clear. The great arena was filled with thousands of spectators, nobles, soldiers, diplomats, and citizens alike. The two combatants stood at opposite ends. Varen was tall and strong, his movements precise and confident. Ethan was smaller, but agile, his military training sharp and focused. The fight began with a clash of blades, Varen's energy sword flashing, dangerously close to Ethan's side. Ethan dodged, rolling beneath a heavy strike. Lyra watched from the side, her heart pounding. She called out instructions in the Varath silent code, a series of gestures and subtle signals, hoping Ethan would understand. Ethan caught her meaning and adjusted his stance. He moved with more caution, watching Varen's patterns, looking for an opening. Suddenly, Varen lunged with a powerful strike aimed to end the fight. Ethan blocked with his forearm, feeling the force jar his bones. But he twisted, breaking the prince's grip, and landed a solid kick to Varen's side. The prince staggered. Ethan pressed the advantage, but Varen recovered quickly, blocking. The next few strikes. The battle was fierce, neither willing to give ground. Sweat and energy crackled in the air. Then Varen feinted and went low, trying to sweep Ethan's legs. But Ethan was ready. He jumped, landing a sharp elbow to Varen's jaw as he passed. Varen stumbled, and Ethan seized the moment. He grabbed Varen's arm, twisted it behind his back, and forced him to the ground. The crowd erupted in gasps and shouts. Ethan held Varen down firmly, waiting for the prince to yield. Varen's eyes flashed with fury, but then softened. He nodded sharply. The queen raised her hand again. "The trial is over. Ethan Cross has proven his honor." Back in the council chamber, the mood had shifted. Lyra stepped forward, her voice ringing clear. "Today, we have seen that strength does not belong to the perfect body alone. It belongs to the heart, to the will, to fight for what is right." Ethan smiled, tired but proud. "I am honored to stand beside her. Together, we will build a future stronger than any doubt or fear." The queen nodded slowly. "Then it is decided. Prince Varen will be stripped of his title and confined until he learns humility," the crowd murmured. Some nobles nodded in approval, others in silence. Lyra turned to Ethan, her golden eyes shining. "You fought not just for me, but for all, who are overlooked and underestimated." Ethan shook his head. "No, you fought, and I was lucky to be by your side." That evening, as the palace quieted, Ethan and Lyra stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The stars burned bright above the crystal spires. "I never imagined my life would come to this," Ethan said softly. Lyra smiled. "Neither did I. But sometimes the strongest bonds are the ones we never expect." Ethan took her hand gently. "Do you still fear what others think?" he asked. She shook her head. "I only fear losing the chance to walk this path with you." Ethan squeezed her hand. "Then let's walk it together." As they stood beneath the stars, the city below began to change, a future built not on old fears, but on new hope. The voice echoed coldly in the archive chamber, bouncing between the glowing crystal pillars. Prince Veyren stepped into view, tall and broad-shouldered, his silver skin gleaming under the dim light. His robe of royal green trailed behind him, and a smirk curved his lips. "You should have stayed silent, Lyra," Veyren said, his tone dripping with contempt. "No one would have cared about you. But now you bring a human into our affairs. You embarrass us before the court." Ethan took a half-step forward, his stance protective. "She's done nothing but survive. If that embarrasses you, maybe you're the problem." Veyron's eyes flicked to him, a faint sneer forming. "And you, the outsider. You think our laws will protect you? That blood bond means nothing to me." "It means something to her," Ethan said evenly. "And that's enough for me." Veyron's smirk widened. "Good. Then you can fall together." He gave a small hand signal, and two Verath guards stepped out from behind the pillars, men in dark armor holding sleek energy blades. They moved. With the cold precision of professionals, Ethan's mind switched to combat mode. "Lyra, stay behind me." But Lyra's voice was calm. "No, Captain. We fight together." The first guard lunged. Ethan sidestepped, grabbing the man's wrist and twisting hard, sending the blade clattering to the floor. The second guard moved toward Lyra, but she shifted her staff in a swift arc, striking the man's knee with a sharp crack. He stumbled, giving her just enough time to jab the staff's tip into his side. A pulse of light erupted. Ethan realized her staff had a stun charge built in. Within seconds, both guards were on the ground, groaning and unable to stand. Ethan turned to Veyron, who was backing away toward the exit. "You're not leaving," Ethan said, but Veyron only laughed. "You have no proof I ordered anything. Those men will say you attacked them unprovoked, and when the council hears you, an alien outsider, assaulted royal guards, you will be expelled from this planet." Lyra's voice cut through the tension. "We already have proof." Veyron's smirk faltered. Ethan pointed toward the crystal, pillar still projecting the feed of the assassin taking orders from Veyron. "You should be more careful where you conduct your business." Veyron's eyes narrowed. For a second, Ethan thought he might attack, but instead the prince turned sharply and strode away, his robe sweeping behind him. "We need to copy this." "Now," Lyra said, moving quickly to the pillar. Minutes later, with the data safely stored in a small crystal drive, Ethan and Lyra slipped out of the archive and back into the palace corridors. They spoke little on the way, both knowing every shadow could hide another spy. When they reached Lyra's chambers, she locked the door and exhaled slowly. "You realize," she said, "that by taking this proof, we've crossed a line." Ethan set the crystal drive on the table. "Lines don't matter if they're drawn by people trying to kill you." Her eyes studied him for a moment, then softened. "You could still walk away, Captain. Leave this mess to me." "Not happening," he said without hesitation. "We're in this together now." The next day, the council meeting was quieter than usual. The queen sat in her high seat, scanning the faces of the assembled nobles. Lyra and Ethan stood side by side near the center. Queen Solara's voice was steady. "You claim to have proof of treachery within the royal family." Lyra stepped forward, holding the crystal drive. "Yes, Your Majesty. Proof that the attempt on our lives came from Prince Veyren." The queen's eyes hardened slightly, but she nodded for the guards to take the drive. Moments later, the image from the archive was projected into the center of the chamber, Veyron handing the sealed packet to the assassin. Gasps rippled through the room. A few nobles muttered curses under their breath. Veyron rose from his seat, fury in his eyes. Lies, fabricated! This is a trick by the human to weaken our court. Ethan stepped forward. That footage was taken from your own palace archives. You can call me a lot of things, Prince, but a master of alien forgery isn't one of them. The Queen raised her hand. Enough. This court will investigate the truth of this matter. Until then, Prince Veyron, you are confined to your chambers. The prince glared at them as guards escorted him out. Ethan caught the promise of vengeance in his eyes. After the session, Ethan and Lyra walked together through the palace gardens. The sun was setting, casting gold light over the crystal flowers. That was dangerous, Ethan said, bringing that proof out in the open. If the Queen had chosen to protect him, we'd be finished. Lyra gave a small shrug. If I am to claim my place, I must take risks, and I cannot claim it alone. Ethan glanced at her. You're not alone. They walked in silence for a moment until Lyra spoke again. You fight well, she said. Not just with weapons, but with words. Part of the job, he said. Soldiers aren't just trained to fight. Sometimes we're trained to stand our ground without firing a shot. Her lips curved faintly. I think that's why you saved me. You fight for people, not just battles. Ethan looked away, not sure how to answer that. That night, trouble found them again. Ethan was heading back to his guest quarters when he heard a sharp metallic crack from Lyra's direction. He sprinted down the corridor, rounding the corner to find her doorway open. Inside, two masked figures were tearing through her shelves, clearly searching for something. Lyra stood near the far wall, her staff raised. Ethan didn't hesitate. He charged the nearest figure, slamming him into the wall with enough force to knock the wind out of him. The second spun toward Ethan, but Lyra moved first. Her staff swept low, hooking behind the intruder's legs and sending him crashing to the ground. Within seconds, both were restrained. Lyra's breathing was quick, but her voice was steady. They were after the copy, Ethan frowned. I thought the council had the only copy. They do, she said, but I kept one more. She crossed to a hidden panel in the wall, opening it to reveal a small crystal identical to the first. In case the council's version mysteriously disappears. Ethan nodded approvingly. Smart, but then his eyes narrowed. You realize this means they'll keep coming until they think it's destroyed. I know, she said simply, which means we must stay ahead of them. The next morning, Ethan asked Lyra to meet him in the palace training hall. The wide space was empty, its floor lined with mats. Weapons of different designs hung along the walls. What is this? Lyra asked, raising a brow. Lesson 1, Ethan said. If they keep coming for you, you need more than a staff. I'm not a soldier, she replied. Neither am I anymore, he said, but I still know how to protect myself, and I can teach you. For the next hour, he showed her simple human defense techniques, how to break a grip, how to use an attacker's weight against them. Lyra learned quickly, adjusting for her leg by shifting balance to her stronger side. When she managed to throw him off balance during a mock attack, she allowed herself a small smile. You learn fast, Ethan said. I've been learning to survive my whole life, she answered. That afternoon, as they walked to another council meeting, Lyra leaned closer to him. You know, Captain, she said, if we keep winning against my enemies, some might actually start to believe in this bond. Some already do, he replied. She studied him for a moment. And you? Do you believe in it? Ethan didn't answer right away, but he knew the truth. He had come here for a treaty, nothing more. Yet now, standing beside her, he felt something else, something stronger than politics. I believe in protecting what matters, he said finally. And right now, that's you. Her golden eyes softened, but before she could reply, the council doors opened, and every eye turned toward them. The game was still far from over. The palace guards were still searching for the assassin when Ethan and Lyra were escorted to a smaller, more private chamber deep inside the Vareth palace. The door shut behind them, muffling the distant echoes of armored boots and shouted orders. Lyra sat near the center table, her staff leaning against her chair. She looked calm. But Ethan noticed how her fingers tapped lightly against the polished wood, a quiet rhythm that betrayed her thoughts. "They will not find him," she said at last. Ethan tilted his head. "Why not?" "Because the assassin was not an outsider. He was sent by someone within the palace," Lyra said. "That is why he moved so freely and why he knew where to strike." Ethan frowned. "An inside job? You're saying someone in your own family's court wants you dead?" Her golden eyes met his. "Not just me. Us. The moment you pulled me to safety, they knew the rumors were true. That bond, whether you claim it or not, makes us one in their eyes. They fear what we might become together." Ethan leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Then tell me, Lyra, why does this bond matter so much here?" She took a slow breath, her voice steady but soft. "Our people believe in blood joining. Two lives linked by shared lifeblood are meant to stand together, to defend each other, to produce stronger heirs. It is more than romance. It is survival. When you saved me with your blood, you unknowingly stepped into a role that, by our law, cannot be broken unless one of us rejects the other in public. But rejection brings shame and weakness in the eyes of the council." Ethan processed her words. "So if I refuse you in front of them, it damages your standing." "Yes," she said. "And mine is already fragile because of my leg." Her tone was matter-of-fact, but Ethan caught the flicker of pain in her expression. She wasn't asking for pity. She was stating the reality of her life. "Then maybe I shouldn't say anything yet," Ethan replied. "If keeping quiet protects you, that's fine. But understand this. On my world, I can't promise something I don't intend to keep." Her lips curved faintly. "And do you intend to keep this bond?" Ethan didn't answer immediately. He didn't know if this was fate, coincidence, or politics. But he did know one thing. Twice now, he had shielded her without thinking. That had to mean something. "For now," he said finally, "I'll stand with you." Later that day, the Peace Council resumed in a grand meeting room. The humans sat on one side of a long crescent table, the Vareth nobles on the other. At the center, Queen Solara presided like a judge over a tense trial. Ethan noticed the stares again, the way noble eyes flicked between him and Lyra. She was seated slightly behind the queen, but her presence was like a quiet anchor in the storm. Even with her staff resting at her side, she sat tall, head high. The queen's voice rang out. "We will discuss terms, but first, we address the attempt on Captain Cross's life." Ethan quickly corrected her. "It wasn't just on me. The shot was aimed at both of us." A ripple went through the Varath side of the table. The queen's eyes narrowed slightly, but she didn't deny it. One older noble leaned forward, his silver skin glinting under the lights. "Perhaps the human speaks truth. But if enemies already see them as one, then perhaps we should decide if they are one." The word sent a wave of murmurs through the chamber. Lyra remained still, but Ethan felt her eyes on him. "What exactly do you mean by that?" Ethan asked. "I mean," the noble said smoothly, "that if you, Captain, will accept the bond, it could unify factions that now stand opposed. A human hero, a Vareth princess, symbolic, powerful. It could bring peace faster than any treaty. Or," another noble cut in, "it could divide us even further. Many will see it as weakness, allying with a crippled heir and an alien soldier." Ethan's hands curled into fists under the table. He opened his mouth, but Lyra spoke first. "You speak as though I am not here," she said, her voice low but sharp. "I may walk differently, but I still walk. I still lead, and I do not need your approval to stand beside the one who saved my life." The queen lifted a hand, silencing the room. "Enough. This is not the moment to force declarations. We will proceed with negotiations. That night, Ethan found Lyra in the palace gardens. The air smelled faintly of crystal blossoms, their petals glowing faintly under the moon's light. She was standing near a shallow pool, her reflection rippling. "You didn't have to defend me like that in the council," Ethan said as he approached. She turned her head slightly. "You would have done the same." "Yes," he admitted. "But now you've made enemies even bolder." "Better to see the knives coming than to pretend they don't exist," she replied. Ethan studied her in the moonlight. Her face was calm, but her hand gripped her staff tightly. "You've lived with this your whole life, haven't you?" he asked. She nodded once. "From the moment I could walk, I knew I was different. My brothers were strong, fast, perfect. I learned quickly that many would not waste their time on someone they thought would never be a warrior, never a mother, never a queen. And yet," Ethan said, "you're still here." She looked at him then, eyes bright. "Because I refuse to be forgotten." There was a moment of silence between them, filled only by the quiet hum of the blossoms. Ethan finally spoke. "Then I'll make you a promise, Lyra. As long as I'm here, no one will forget you. Not the council, not your enemies. You won't stand alone." Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "Be careful, Captain Cross. In my culture, promises like that are taken very seriously." "I'm counting on it," he said. The next morning, the danger returned. Ethan was walking with 2 human aides toward the council chamber when a palace guard approached, one of Lyra's personal guards, a tall Vareth named Coriel. His voice was urgent. "Captain Cross," Coriel said, "the princess requests your presence immediately." Ethan didn't ask questions. He followed Coriel through the palace halls to Lyra's private chambers. She was standing beside a low table covered in data scrolls. Her expression was serious. "What's going on?" Ethan asked. "I've been going through old security records," she said, gesturing to the glowing scrolls. "The man who tried to kill us yesterday, I recognized his movements. He was once a guard for my cousin's household." "Your cousin," Ethan repeated slowly. "And where is your cousin now?" "In the royal court," she said, smiling in front of the queen. Ethan's jaw tightened. "So you're telling me this was ordered by family?" "I'm telling you it is very likely," she corrected. "But we need proof. Without it, the queen will say we're stirring trouble." Ethan's military instincts flared. "Then we find proof. Where do we start?" She handed him a small device. "This is a key to the East Archive. It holds years of security feeds. No one visits it now. It's considered obsolete. But I believe our answers may be there." Ethan took the key. "Then let's go." Her brow lifted slightly. "You realize this is not a safe path?" He gave a small, crooked smile. "I've never been good at safe." That evening they moved quietly through the less-used corridors of the palace. The East Archive was a tall, narrow chamber filled with crystal pillars, each glowing faintly with stored images. Lyra navigated between them with slow, practiced steps, leaning on her staff but never pausing. Ethan followed, keeping watch. Finally, she stopped before one pillar. "This one," she said. She touched the surface and a shimmering image appeared, a feed from 3 years ago. It showed a younger version of the assassin, walking in full guard uniform beside a tall Varath man draped in royal green. Ethan pointed. "That your cousin?" She nodded grimly. "Prince Veyron. He has always hated me. Calls me the cracked jewel when he thinks I cannot hear." The feed shifted to show a meeting in shadow, the same assassin accepting a sealed packet from Veyron. Ethan exhaled slowly. "That's it. That's your proof." But before they could copy the feed, the lights in the archive dimmed, and the sound of footsteps approached fast. Ethan stepped in front of Lyra, hand instinctively going to the sidearm at his hip. Shadows stretched between the pillars. A voice echoed through the chamber. "You should have stayed in your role, cousin. Quiet." "Invisible." Lyra's fingers tightened on her staff. Ethan's muscles tensed. The game had just changed. The great hall of the Varath royal palace was made of smooth black stone that shimmered under the blue light of hovering crystals. Rows of alien nobles stood in silence as the tall human soldier walked between them. His boots echoed on the polished floor. His name was Ethan Cross, captain of the Earth Defense Corps, and this was the first time a human had been invited to the Varath capital after decades of tension. Ethan was here for one reason: peace. Earth and Varath had fought bitter battles along the edge of the galaxy, and now both sides were tired. A treaty could mean no more dead soldiers, no more broken families. He kept his posture straight, his eyes calm, but inside he was tense. The Varath were not easy to read. They had tall, graceful forms, skin that shimmered in shades of silver or pale gold, and eyes like molten metal. They valued strength, both physical and political. As he reached the throne platform, the royal council stood in a half-circle. At the center sat Queen Solara, her silver hair braided with precious stones. She studied him like one might study a dangerous animal, curious but cautious. "Captain Ethan Cross of Earth," the Queen said, her voice smooth but cold. "You stand before the court of Varath to speak of peace." Ethan bowed slightly. "I stand here for that reason, Your Majesty. I hope our worlds can lay down their weapons and build trust." There was a ripple of whispers among the nobles. Some eyes narrowed. Others looked bored. Ethan knew the Varath had long memories. Peace wouldn't come just because he asked for it. Then the room's atmosphere shifted. The sound of slow footsteps echoed from the side entrance. Every head turned. Ethan looked too. A young woman entered the hall, her form draped in soft white fabric, marked with royal symbols. Her skin had a faint silver glow, but her gait was uneven. One leg moved stiffly, the other with more ease. She carried a slim walking staff, each step deliberate. Ethan noticed the way the other nobles looked at her, some with pity, some with quiet mockery. She ignored them. When she reached the center of the hall, her golden eyes locked on Ethan. A smile curved her lips, small but certain, and then she spoke. "Do you remember me?" she asked. Her voice was calm, but it carried across the hall. "I am the disabled one you mated with." The hall exploded in noise, gasps, sharp whispers. A few nobles stepped back as if she had thrown a weapon into the room. The Queen's eyes narrowed. Ethan froze. His mind scrambled through memories. Mated with? He had never. And then it hit him. 3 years ago, during a mission on the fringe of Varath space, his squad had found a crashed royal transport under fire from raiders. Inside was a wounded young woman, her leg crushed, her body failing. The IE medic had shouted that her blood chemistry was too different for their supplies to work. Ethan had been the only match for an emergency genetic serum. The medic explained fast. His blood could be used to craft a regenerative infusion. It could save her life. There was no time to think about cultural meanings. He had agreed instantly. The medic had injected the serum into her veins while Ethan kept her conscious, telling her she would be okay. She had looked at him with fever-bright eyes, whispered something in her language, and then darkness had taken her. He hadn't seen her again. Now she was here, alive. And apparently, in Varath terms, what he had done counted as a mating bond. Ethan's jaw tightened. Around him, the alien nobles stared, waiting for his answer. The Queen broke the silence. "Lyra, step back," she said sharply. "Do not—" But the young woman, Lyra, did not step back. She stood taller, leaning slightly on her staff, her eyes still locked on Ethan. "I owe my life to this man," she said to the court. "By our law, his gift of blood was not just aid. It was a joining, A bond. She looked back at Ethan. I have searched for you since that day. Ethan cleared his throat, keeping his voice steady. Princess Lyra, I didn't know your customs. On my world, saving someone's life doesn't— In ours, she interrupted. It does. The Queen's expression hardened. This is a matter for the royal family, not the Peace Council. But it was too late. The chamber was alive with speculation. Some nobles whispered that this was a scandal. Others muttered that perhaps it was a sign, a link between human and Vareth blood, binding the two peoples together. Ethan felt a dozen political traps springing at once. If he denied Lyra's words outright, it might insult her and her supporters. If he accepted them, it could be seen as overstepping Earth's role. I think we should speak privately, he said to Lyra. There's much I don't understand. She inclined her head. Then follow me. They met in a side chamber, the noise of the court fading behind thick walls. The room was smaller, warmer, with sunlight streaming through a crystal ceiling. Lyra sat on a cushioned bench, her staff resting. Beside her, without the pressure of the court, she looked softer, but there was still steel in her gaze. You really don't remember me? She asked quietly. I remember, Ethan said. The crash, the raiders. You were hurt badly. And you saved me. Her fingers touched the side of her neck where the serum had entered. Your blood mixed with mine. To us, that is life shared. It cannot be undone. Ethan sighed. Lyra, on Earth, that act doesn't mean marriage or mating. It's just what we do when someone's life is in danger. I know, she said. I studied your people after I woke. But among my kind, no one has ever done such a thing for me. No one would. Her voice grew quieter. I was born weak in body. My leg is twisted from birth. Most saw me as unfit for partnership, unfit for the throne. That day, you didn't see weakness. You saw someone worth saving. Ethan felt something shift inside him. He remembered how determined she had been to stay awake, to fight against the pain. He hadn't thought of her as weak then, and he didn't now. I didn't expect to ever see you again, he admitted. I sought you, she said simply. And now that you are here, I will stand by your side. The others can think what they want. He looked at her carefully. You know this could be dangerous. If the wrong people believe I'm your mate, they might try to use that against both of us. Her lips curved slightly. Then let them try. They returned to the hall together, whispers following their every step. Ethan noticed the way Lyra walked, slow, deliberate, but unyielding. She did not hide her limp. She wore it like a banner. The Queen announced the continuation of the peace talks, but the atmosphere had changed. Every noble's attention now flicked between Ethan and Lyra. When the meeting ended, Ethan started to leave, but a sudden movement caught his eye. A shadow slipped along the upper balcony. A glint of metal flashed in the light. Instinct took over. Ethan lunged forward, pulling Lyra down just as a thin, needle-like projectile shot through the air and buried itself in the pillar behind them with a sharp thunk. Guards shouted. The hall erupted. The shadow fled before anyone could reach it. Ethan kept his body over Lyra's until the guards confirmed the danger had passed. When he finally stood, she looked up at him, eyes bright. You protected me again, she said, softly. He glanced at the embedded dart. Looks like someone doesn't want you near me or me near you. She met his gaze without fear. Then we are already in this together. Ethan didn't answer right away. But in that moment, with the Vareth court in chaos around them, he realized something. Whatever this bond meant, whatever trouble it brought, walking away was no longer an option.